You are watching FinTech Talk, sculpting the future with AI, crypto, and FinTech. Welcome, FinTech Talkers, where we explore the forces shaping the future of financial services, AI, and crypto. Today's guest is someone we've known for a long time through multiple conversations with True Global Ventures. Joining us is Dušan Stojanović, founding partner and director at True Global Ventures, or TGV for short. TGV is licensed in Singapore and built a reputation for backing frontier companies across AI, blockchain, and digital infrastructure. What also makes TGV unusual is that the GPs invest meaningful amounts of their own capital alongside the LPs. Today's conversation is more about a funding milestone and things that are developing. We're going to unpack why Hong Kong's new stablecoin regime matters. And one of TGV's portfolio company had a big announcement that we're going to talk about. Animoca Brands, which is one of TGV's portfolio companies, just released an HKD stablecoins. And then we're going to connect that to agentic commerce and the upcoming agentic world, if you will. So, but Dušan, let's just get right into it. I know we're short on time. Tell us a little bit about the big announcement in Hong Kong.
Yeah, so yes, it's something that we've been waiting for a long time. As we all know, USDC and USDT in the US market are by far, the two most used stablecoins in the world and have had a head start from the rest of the world without any doubt. Different, obviously, legislations have tried to pick that up, and one of them is Hong Kong. As you probably know, the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar, and they already announced in August that they were ready to go, and that there were about 36 applicants that wanted to actually get licensed for the first so-called, as you mentioned, Hong Kong dollar stablecoin license, then licensed by the Hong Kong monetary authorities. Now that has taken a little bit longer. We were originally expecting that it would happen by end of March, and now the announcement came kind of mid in April. And we are super happy on behalf of Animoca, which is, like you mentioned, one of our portfolio companies, that they actually got one out of the two. So there were actually only two that got granted in this first grant period. One was HSBC, and the second one, Anchor Point. Anchor Point is a joint venture between Standard Chartered, which owns 51% of the joint venture, Animoca Brands, 39%, and Hong Kong Telecom, the remaining 10%. So it's a unique combination, as you can see. Well, you can see, first of all, that both licenses that got granted had some kind of banking relationship. I think trust and all the KYC and AML that comes with it is something that obviously the regulators have been looking at. But it's a unique combination of three parties kind of working together in actually try to establish something which should be a regional play and really facilitating trade intra-Asia. It could be trade between Singapore and Hong Kong. It could be trade between Hong Kong and Middle East. It could be trade between other Asian countries and Hong Kong. The traditional trade flows that already exist, that we believe that, with this Anchor Point, we could actually use and establish and even grow that trade even further. So that's really what the kind of niche is. And it's a huge niche in terms of trade.
Big news. Yeah, and Standard Chartered is a big trade organization. You have Hong Kong Telecom. So it's really unique. One of your portfolio companies with a bank and a large telecom coming together to create regulated, institutionally backed digital money. This is big.
Yes, it is. Now, everything will take its time, right? I mean, just because we got the license or Animoca got the license through Anchor Point doesn't mean, the first one stablecoin is being issued yet, right? So that is probably going to take some time. I actually don't know. You would need to ask Anchor Point when that will happen, but probably, in Q2 or Q3 that we see the first trade happening. And that is going to be a great moment when we see actually the first transaction also happening and not just the license being granted. But it's a first path, which is extremely important. Yes, and it is big news.
Yeah. So let's now connect. So obviously it's 2026, and for the last couple of years, everything has been AI, the five stack of AI, there's then agentic AI, then the claws, Open Claw, Nemo Claw, and they're all making. And Salesforce did a big announcement last week that they're going headless. They're just going to expose APIs and CLIs or command line interfaces to agents. So obviously agents and automation through claws is a big thing. And you see this whole stablecoin infrastructure connected to that development. Help us connect that too, Dusan.
Yeah, so as you might remember, we all started, True Ventures ages ago as being more or less payment specialists. My claim to fame was when I was awarded Angel of the Year in Europe 2013, when I exited 3 payment companies actually in 10 days. And when I see stablecoin, I see it kind of happening again. In those days, what was very important was, wow, you have a first, payment online. That was great. Like, oh, do we dare to do that? Like, what is the kind of fraud? What can you do in terms of, is this risky? Is this not risky? Can I be defrauded? What are questions being asked? Now, with stablecoin, you also kind of want to know what's going on. So yes, the stablecoin, the way we see it, and Circle has to some extent done it already in the US, is that you can prepare a lot and you can do a lot of the underlying preparation for the payments in terms of agentic AI and have specific agents performing specific tasks. And when it comes to trade finance, it's extremely interesting because the whole trade finance documentation is pretty heavy. So it's very, very interesting what can happen if you automate fully the underlying payment preparation on both sides. And that we believe is going to be a huge productivity gain and probably replacing the traditional payment methods that exist today to facilitate trade. So that's really where we see it from the anchor points of view. If I just go a little bit longer in that vision, we have another portfolio company called Ledger. And what Ledger has already integrated in terms of when they integrate with payment methods and OpenClaw is what does it look like when a machine pays to another machine. So obviously, you may not want to give your credit card to your machine. In the old days, when we have PayPal and so on, as the first e-wallets happening, you may want to give it a couple of $100 just to experiment what would happen with a PayPal wallet as a consumer, because the trust was still not there, not also the security. So what we still believe is that it's going to take a while before you kind of outsource your credit card to your agentic AI machine, helping to pay to another machine. So we still believe that there needs to be a human in the loop to actually authorize the transaction. And that's really where Ledger comes in, where it can be that human in the loop in terms of being a hardware device, which is not a soft certificate, which is outside of your computer. And by default, I would say more secure than many, many other ways of transacting. Think about, the first banking transactions we did around 2000. People had password and user for soft certificates, but those that actually stayed for a long way were those solutions that were so-called hardware tokens, that you had something and something you knew, and that made you extra secure. That's the way you should look at Ledger and hardware devices when machine starts to facilitate other machines. So that's the second layer we see in terms of securitizing all those trades that can happen from machine to machine. So that's on the blockchain side, where we see that both, Animoca through Anchor Point and Ledger are actually, really taking the path forward in moving a lot of their businesses to autonomous agents. So that's super exciting. I would say then we have started and we have invested in actually machine learning and big data since 2015. But we started actually to really refocus on agentic AI and AI first companies in May 2024. And I think yourself was there when we did this huge competition in San Mateo. And from that, we now see very, very specific user cases happening, in legal, in insurance, in healthcare, where, the DeepSeek moment was, okay, the reliance on open source started to become important, that not only large language models could win. Now what we're seeing with autonomous agents as well coming in, and as we know, OpenClaw had more open source developers adopting OpenClaw than Linux had in the last 20 years. And that is fascinating. And that means that we are now seeing, a second wave here, where I would say the small language model really can play, make a difference. First, they are built on specific data modes that large language models may not have, or in many cases don't, and they can sustain that competitive advantage by building in their own autonomous agents. So we really believe that it's a big time with the combination of small language models and with very specific use cases and data modes in combination with autonomous agents can actually procure hundreds and thousands of new companies as we go into this AI revolution, which many of us think is as big as the industrial revolution was at the time for the service industry. So, and that leads me maybe to the last and third point, which how does that impact us as a VC? We as a VC, we need to basically make a difference. If a Peter Sternberger can create an open claw without any financial support, and rumors say that he sold it for $1 billion, I think in shares, to OpenAI, what do we do? What can we help with? Because clearly money doesn't seem to make a difference. And we claim to be the most networked VC in the world, which means San Francisco, New York, Paris, London, Stockholm, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. But if we really want to be the most networked VC in the future, we would need to develop ourselves to also have agentic AIs and autonomous agents helping our portfolio companies, and not us only as humans. Then we can only really scale and help our portfolio companies. So we are super excited about this. And basically, I think one of the biggest challenges right now is that what Alibaba mentioned, the 996, which was working, as you all know, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days per week. That was something that we saw in a lot of Chinese companies. I think it's come a little bit, quite a lot, maybe even to the Bay Area. And it's actually coming even to the VC industries because, we need to survive. And it's been pretty brutal in the last 3 months, the way we think about ourselves and how we need to kind of flip in order to survive, because we are also a professional service firm. And I do think that we're well positioned with the 16,000 relationship we've built through our 73 events. But we need to accelerate. We need to be faster, and we need to be even more nimbler to be able to help the best companies out there.
Yeah, so VC Claw is what you're talking about there, but you there was a lot you said there, Dušan, and I know we're short on time, and there's a lot to unpack, but you probably have to come back to the show to kind of unpack this for our audience. But just to summarize, so you're talking about heading towards a world where agents don't just recommend actions, but contract, transact, and settle, kind of your point on trade finance and programmable payments. So leveraging the blockchain's programmability and perhaps the identity combined with the reasoning and inference of AI. And that's like you articulated it wonderfully. And the biggest thing that I liked about how this impact, how you're seeing how AI and maybe these infrastructures, new financial infrastructure, impact you as a VC firm, and how you can support with a Claw type VC agent, not just 996, but 24/7, working for your portfolio company, working for your investors. But in the last minute we have, Dušan, where do you go from here? So obviously you're reinventing yourself as a firm in this new age, and you're looking for some other portfolio companies or other investments. So what's next for you? I know you are in San Francisco again today.
Yeah, so I mean, as you can hear a little bit, our theme indirectly, as you can hear, is future works, and we see that being a huge transition for the companies that we want to invest into, right? But also for ourselves. So what we are focused on are 5 different areas, which we call future works. One, which is huge in terms of back office, which is legal, which is tax, which is accounting, which is insurance, customer service centers for insurance, and so on. All the kind of back office job, compliance is there as well. Then what we call middle office, which is basically coding and cybersecurity, and specifically coding for specific areas of coding and not just general coding, and what that has meant for the whole coding industry. But cybersecurity, that we believe is going to be more important than ever. in order, especially since there are vulnerabilities in some of the systems already being built. And then the last part, which is on the front end, more marketing, sales, business communications, sales automation. So it's the whole flow actually in the company that we see by profession being disrupted, including ourselves. So that's where we are. And yes, we would love to come back when we have the first transaction, right, from Anchor Point. When we see, Ledger being that human in the loop that we vision, and when we see some of our AI-first companies, have implemented all their own autonomous agents, and we ourselves, that's when we're going to be back, Paddy, when we tell you about some of those transactions, and not just talk about how it could look like, but when it's really live.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if people are listening, where can they find more information about TGV, connect with you if they're looking for capital, and where can people find more information about Anchor Point?
Well, I think, probably the most immediate one will be on Thursday at 4 p.m. If you want to kind of listen in to some of those companies, you can join us and listen into more detail at 4 p.m. Pacific time. An Anchor Point, I think they will have, their own detailed releases. But yes, Yat will speak a little bit about it at 3:45 Pacific time on this Thursday.
Gotcha. I'll put that in the show notes if you get this out before that. Dušan, this was fantastic. If there's one takeaway from this conversation, it's we're not just digitizing finance, we're redesigning it for machines. And stablecoins may be the rail that make that possible. Thank you again for joining us on the FinTech Talk Show.
Thank you. Thanks, Paddy.